Hey guys, Eric Barstow with Painting Business Pro here. And today I'm super excited because Ty has joined me, and Ty's been, she just started getting into commercial painting in 2020, right about this time last year. So it's June 14th, 2021. And it's been 1 year, and I've had my eyes on her for the last year, watching her kick ass and do amazing things with her commercial business, but I didn't know how much she had done. So she told me in 2020, and the last 6 months of the year, did 600,000 in commercial work. And then so far this year, we're not even halfway through the year, and you're at 1.6 million. So $2.2 million in commercial painting in 12 months with no background in commercial painting. And if I remember right, Ty, you were only 1 year into running a painting business at all when you started with commercial work last year. So super impressive. Really excited to hear just, your story today. So thanks for joining me. And why did you decide to get into commercial work? And just tell us a little bit about your kind of journey from whatever you're doing before to residential and now into commercial.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I'm glad to be here. Well, I started out as having an online business. I'm an entrepreneur and an investor. I still do consulting and speaking, but I wanted something that was more on the ground and something that was more local. And so, about 2 years ago, I had people coming to me that were small business owners that were doing some painting, maybe working on their own, and they kept asking me, "Hey, Ty, get me some jobs." And so I started, just to get them individual jobs and pass them along. And then just wanting to learn. I knew nothing. I have no idea how to paint. I still cannot paint. And so I wanted to know a little bit more about the business, which is how I connected with you, Eric, and saw your course. And I was like, well, this seems easy.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into painting to begin with. It was just more advantageous for me to start a company, have it formalized, and working like an absolute awesome machine in order to help individuals who are coming to me asking for help. And it just kind of grew from there, honestly.
So you did start in residential, and that's
Mhm.
when you actually got the Painting Business Pro
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
When you started that. Okay, I thought so. And what made you, and how, by the way, how did the first year go just in residential?
It went really well. I was surprised that I got clients at first. I was just shocked. I was like, wait, it's this easy? Why are we not doing this?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to become a business, really. I honestly just thought it was going to be one season of me helping, like I said, friends and family in the area and helping them to kind of, grow their own business. But it just turned into something much bigger and much easier than I anticipated.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything you would add to that? Like I mean, how has it grown to be like one of your main sources of business? What did you think was so much easier? What surprised you? There's a lot of,
It's about 50-50 now.
yeah,
Like I said, I still consult. It's my passion. It's what I love doing. But as far as income's concerned, the painting business is definitely now about 50% of my income.
yeah,
I would love to have it growing bigger and maybe more autonomous. I'm still involved in the company. Not as much as I was at first, but I am still involved. I'd like to replace myself eventually, and have it just kind of just growing itself.
yeah. It's not bad. 2 years in, and you're at the spot you're at. Pretty good, pretty good. Well, and I think it'd be interesting for people to know too, Ty, just you're not in a big metro area.
No, absolutely not. I'm in a tiny little college town. Our biggest city is 2 hours away. We're just a very small little town, and I stayed local the first season. So that first, I started in the summer, and that first season I stayed local. I stayed just in my area.
And what was your first year in business like? How much did you do?
I did just under 700,000 my first year. That was only residential. Yeah.
Awesome. And in the smaller area, and are you using employees or subcontractors?
I was using subcontractors.
Okay, awesome. What's the population roughly in the town you're in?
Wow. We probably have, I would say, 80,000 in the it's a small town with other tiny towns connected to
Yeah.
it. So about 80,000 in our little area. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's right on the cusp of like, do you start going with employees or subcontractors? So that's why I was curious. But congratulations, 700,000 your first year is awesome. And then, the main meat of our conversation is about this commercial work you've been absolutely killing it with. So why did you decide that you wanted to get into commercial work, and tell us about the last 12 months because it's
Yeah.
got.
So when I first started residential, I was just doing residential, and then people started asking me for other types of work, especially small construction and renovation, which I did get into. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I've learned to stay in your lane.
Yeah.
And hooked up with some people who were doing hotels, so small hotels in our area. They were building out hotels, and they needed some paint work in addition to the construction work. And the commercial side of that was so different that I just had so many questions. I didn't know what I was doing. I almost lost my shirt on the first one. So
Yeah.
I was so excited. It just a serendipity. You came out with a course for commercial at the same time that I was really struggling with that. And so I just thought it was advantageous, even if I just got one or two jobs, to take your course and learn how to do it properly so that I wasn't losing all of the work that I had just, done our first season.
Yeah. What were the biggest things you learned from, Scott? I mean, really Scott. I help facilitate. I wrote a lot of the documents, but Scott's definitely the brains behind all the commercial stuff. We've learned a ton from him. But what were the big things that you took away from Scott that helped you, with everything you've done in the last year? And then how did that translate in your business?
Estimating was huge because I'm not in the industry. It's not something I've trained for. It's not something I had experience in. I was going in blindly and I was literally guessing at things.
Yeah.
So the estimating part was very, very helpful. And then the hierarchy of how commercial work is. With a homeowner, it's one thing. You're dealing with one person. You kind of know, if there's a husband and a wife or what's going on, you can kind of deal with that. But in the commercial world, there were so many moving parts and so many people. I didn't know who was doing what, and nobody was going to explain it to me, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just kind of left me out to dry and hope that I just, did something to their advantage. And so that was very, very helpful in understanding, how does commercial work go, who's in charge, who's not in charge, what to look out for, who not to work with.
Yeah.
That was great because I had taken on some projects that I probably shouldn't have, and I would have probably continued down that road taking on projects that should have been an absolute no if I
Yeah.
didn't have any of that education.
What are some of those projects? I know there was one you said that like, hey, I didn't take that job in, and I think it would have put me out of business. What are some of the jobs and things you look for now that you say no to that you maybe didn't used to?
Yeah, one thing was, residential work is relatively small compared to, this commercial work. And if something goes wrong with payment, or if it takes a little while, I
Yeah.
could probably float most of my residential projects. With the commercial project, one of this project, it was a $7 million project. It was building a student housing. And I didn't realize how much of it they wanted me to take on and how much they wanted me to float. 1 week's salary just for my workers would put me in debt for everything that I have, business and personal debt. And so, you know, learning how to manage that, I did end up taking on that project, but I segregated out into pieces so that if anything went wrong with any of those, I could still recoup my cost. But 30, 90 days doesn't sound like a long time to float something, but when you're talking, 70, 80 people and equipment and supplies, it became crazy.
Yeah. How much did that job end up being?
We did about $3 million on that job with our part, but I subbed out a lot of it. And so a lot of it didn't go directly to me. But yeah, our contract part of that was 3 million.
Wow. Killer.
Mhm.
All right. So how did you kind of break into all this commercial? Sounds like in your local area, it was a lot of networking and referrals and stuff, but then I know you started doing stuff in Atlanta, and now I know you started doing stuff, in other
Mhm.
places. So we'll get into all that, but how did you really kind of break into this? Cause you went like from zero to like you cruised. I mean, 2.2 million in 1 year is a lot. And I know you're not slowing down.
Mhm.
So how did you kind of shift your focus and just start tackling all this? Was it all referrals? Was it just networking from one to another? Like, how did you go from 0 to 2.5 million?
Yeah, so at first it was referrals. Now I have the advantage of I'm bilingual, so I can speak English and Spanish
Yeah.
fluently. And so most of the time when I come into a new area, when there's no one knows me, I'm coming in to problem solve. And that's been every single time where there's been a problem, and there's usually been a problem between, management and workers. And because I speak both languages and I'm also a business owner coming in, I was able to bridge that gap. I kind of got known for doing that, for coming in and appeasing the workers, allowing them to feel comfortable, fixing problems that were going on, and then move forward, whether they were mine or not, whether they're my crews or not. And so that's really how I got started. And from there, it kind of went to word of mouth of Ty has a crew, whether I had one or not. I could find one. And we happened to start in a time where it was difficult for people to find crews that were really working. And I could go to the nearest metropolitan city. I could find workers who were maybe shy about working because they didn't speak the language. I could make them comfortable. I actually had vehicles where I could pick people up. I can have them, make sure their paperwork was in order. And so I think I took a little bit of an extra step
Yeah.
to make sure that my crews were in place and I know I probably went overboard with doing some of that, but that extra step allowed me to have a massive crew when it was needed. Someone was in a bind in our area. They're a very, very big company. They needed 36 people and they needed them yesterday. I was able to get on the phone and get the crew in there. I had to drive some of them there, but
That's
I was
awesome.
able to do it. And so I think I gained confidence in the area very
Yeah.
quickly. And then I just stand out. I'm a minority woman in the South. And so people started talking and they just know who I am now.
Yeah. So is most of all the business you're getting at this point? Are you just getting lots of requests for commercial now? Like, do you have consistent stream pipeline? What does that
I
look like for you now?
Yeah. So the bigger projects were all referrals. I actually started being much more intentional and I used a lot of the information that came from your course because I wanted to still stay in my local area. A lot of these bigger ones were outside of, they're an hour or 2 hours out. So
Yeah.
I was much more intentional with my marketing inside of my city. So, marketing to small businesses that I wanted to work with. And I would actually be intentional about that. And a lot of businesses come from there. So it's not only just referrals.
Awesome. So how did you get into Disneyland? How did that end
Yeah.
up happening? Tell me a little bit about that. That's like
Um,
coolest project to date. So yeah.
yeah. So one of our workers had been working for a larger company that was painting a lot of supermarkets across the region. And he was disgruntled with his pay and things like that. So I told him to come and work for me. I didn't realize he was bringing all of his crews. So he talked to all of his people. And they all just decided they wanted to come work for me. And I said, well, I can't take you all. I don't have that much work right now to take on, 6 additional crews. And so they said, well, what if we could get you a big project? And so their boss was actually had the contract for this Disney contract. And because they were all threatening to leave, they said they would only do it if I was involved in the project. And so my workers are the ones who brought me to the table on this one. Wasn't anything intentional, wasn't anything I ever expected. But they brought me to the table and I was able to negotiate and take part of that contract as my own.
That's pretty badass. So what was it? How'd that one go? I think before we started, you said that one took a while or something to that effect.
We are still doing that, honestly. And I
Yeah.
think it's going to be an ongoing thing because as we move through the park, they've segregated this particular one where we only do certain colors. And so we move through the park doing certain colors. By the time we finish, it's now time to refresh the ones we started with. So I anticipate this going on for years, honestly.
That's pretty badass. That's a pretty great one to put in your portfolio.
Yes, I will definitely. I need to update my portfolio and
Disney
put
trusts me. Disney trusts me. Come on. No, that's super, super cool project. So are you doing much residential now, or have you pretty much gone into all commercial work?
Yeah, so I'll do residential every once in a while. I'm very selective of the size of the projects that we do. And it's only really to maybe fill in gaps or if we need, I have a crew that is kind of like my up and coming crew. So if they need some experience, they need a place where I can actually physically go in and have my professional painters really look in over their shoulder and make sure they're doing right. So I kind of use residential for that. Our homeowners are much more lenient, especially in this area. We have a lot of student housing. We do a lot of apartment turn. And
Yeah.
so, them being able to go in and do that type of thing, there's a lot more flexibility than some of our bigger projects. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I have a couple last questions and I'll let you get going. So one is you're not having any trouble getting a labor force. People are just coming, bringing their whole crews over to you. And this is a time when I know a lot of people are always complaining about finding good help.
Mhm.
That's always been a thing, but I think it's a little more now than it has been. You see it at all the restaurants, everywhere's hiring, right? So
Mhm.
I've been seeing that complaint more. Besides being bilingual, what do you think you're doing? Because if you were bilingual and a terrible boss, you wouldn't have all these people working for you. What do you think are the things you're also providing or bringing to the table that's allowing you to, recruit and keep so many great crews and great people around?
Yeah, I always try to add a perk on, whether it's buying lunch for my crews on projects, paying, you know, additional bonuses that they weren't expecting or things like that. I always make sure that I price my projects high enough and accept projects that allow me to have extra profit to do special things for my crews. And it's sometimes they're just really, really little. Like I said, I have a local friend that has a food truck. I hired him to bring lunch every day to my crews. Just little things like that, in addition to just paying them a fair wage and understanding them, just asking them, how are you doing? I mean, I literally stop in and they know I don't know how to paint. I literally stop in and say, how are you doing? Well, show me what you're doing. Are you learning something new? Do you need, I always ask them, do you need additional training? Do you need additional skills? And I really try, even if there's a problem going on, or even if I see something like inconsistencies in their work, trying to pair them up with journeymen that or women that are really experts so that they feel that I also care about them growing in their skill set. And I think that's made a big difference.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think any of those things should be understated or underestimated. I think that's something that's probably missing a lot in our industry is someone who just like really cares, is looking out for their crews and their painters, is providing opportunities to learn and grow and improve and providing lunch. And you're right. It's not a huge deal to provide lunch, but it's a huge deal to provide lunch and looking out for people and taking care of people and showing up. I think that's awesome. And I think it's something everyone should do a little bit more of with their crews that are out there busting ass and doing a great job for them. So
Yeah.
that says a lot about just your leadership out there with all your people, and the fact that, hey, we're not going to paint Disneyland unless Ty's involved, I think says a lot.
That was totally
Yeah.
unexpected.
Hey, good things happen unexpectedly all the time.
Yeah.
So I guess the last question, and it might be a two-part, but why do you like commercial more than residential now that you're in it?
Yeah. I like it because the profit's number one.
Yeah.
But it's also challenging. And I think I get to build a longer term relationship. I know some of our clients now that we're 2 years in as far as residential is concerned, we've been able to come back and do a client. Maybe they've had us do an interior, then next they've had us do an exterior, but we often lose touch during that process. Where with commercial, I'm finding I might do paint a Walmart in one town and paint another one in another town, and it's the same customer, it's the same clientele. We're talking, we're dialoguing, we're getting to know them, their families, and what they're doing. Commercial just seems to have a lot more longevity to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get to help a lot more people on my crew, so I can tell them, for the next 14 months, we've got work. Whereas with residential, even though there's always homes to paint, I feel that we're renewing them much more frequently. Whereas commercial, it allows me to plan for more long term.
Awesome. Amazing. What are your goals for the next year or couple years with where you're going with this business?
Yeah, well, I'd like to expand into more cities, into bigger cities. There's some cities that I have my eye on. Definitely want to expand. I'd like to tighten up what we do because we're so new. We're kind of taking just not any project, but there's a certain threshold of projects that we'll take. I'd like to really specialize in something and get really, really good at just doing that and being known for that. I'm not sure what that is yet, and still feeling out the market and seeing, what works for us. And then I'd like to step out of it, honestly. I'm not a painter. I'm a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'd like to have a little less hands-on with these projects and just have them grow and create another job for someone else that's not me.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's super exciting. There's just so much opportunity in this market. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Um, and is there any just advice you would give to someone who's kind of in your shoes a year ago, like maybe dabbling in commercial or interested in getting into commercial or not sure if they want to get in commercial? There's obviously a lot of unknowns and, there's some hard lessons you could learn, but any advice you'd pass to someone who's watching this?
Yeah, definitely get your course number one. Save yourself some of the heartache and understand your numbers. I mean, oftentimes we get so excited, at least I do, when I see these really big numbers and these really, really big contracts, but really dive into the micro numbers and see, what does that really mean, on a monthly, on a daily, so that that you're not stepping into something that, the numbers look big, but none of it's going in your pocket. That's has been a problem for me, seeing big projects and wait a minute, there's actually no profit here. you know. So that would be my first thing. And starting small, I mean, start with a dentist's office, start with a, doctor's office. You don't have to do the whole hospital. Um, and you might not be able to float the whole hospital right now. And so starting small and working your way up, it builds up very quickly.
Well, and I remember that. That was one of the first jobs you did was like 2 walls in a retail strip. And then a couple weeks later, you're like, boom, just got 2 anchor stores and 15 other retail stores. And, a couple months later, all of a sudden you had people hitting you up left and right. And, it was
Yeah.
off to the races.
We
So
repaired a wall in a Barnes and Nobles or Books a Million, excuse me.
yeah,
Repaired a wall. It was one single wall, and we did their exterior railing, and that was it. And so happened the property manager also manages tons of other strip malls in the area, and we were the first ones to call, and all we did was a wall.
amazing. It's awesome. Well, Ty, I mean, I just acknowledge you for what a great job you've done. People don't keep using contractors unless they do a great job. And, workers don't keep working for someone unless they're great to work for. So says a whole lot about how you do. And I love the comment you had about, I got to find my specialization. You got to find that unique thing that you're really good at and like be that all over the place. I think it's a super smart business move. I think not enough people think that way, with their business is, I want to, every time I see a dollar sign, I want to go get it. And that's not the way you should do it. So keep narrowing that in. And yeah, any last comments or words from you?
No, just I've probably said this before to you, but just say thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge. This is something you could have kept close to your belt and you could have just had a monopoly across the United States, but you chose instead to share it with us. And I know it's part of your business strategy also, but it's been life-changing for me. And I'm sure for others. So I really appreciate you just pouring into us. So thank you for what you do, Eric.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate it. I love it. I'm happy to do it. And I'm glad we finally got to connect. It's been fun to
Yeah.
watch your journey. And yeah, thanks for popping on with me. So I'll let you get back to your day and keep the posts coming.
All right. Sounds good, Eric. Thank you.
All right, cool. See you, Ty.
All right. Bye.